Hey there friends, what's going on? It's Codiak here, back for another Assassin Creed Valhalla video, and today we are checking out 3 brand new leaked screenshots, what they mean for the future of the game, specifically Wrath of the Druids. Now of course we want to start with the most interesting one because you know we never like to bury the lead here at Legacy Gaming, and of course it's this mid-action scene. We see Eivor with an awesome looking bone-inspired weapon. It's clearly a spear. There's just a lot to talk about in this scene. So let's start with probably the most interesting element in this entire scene, and that of course is the werewolf. Now, as is always the case with Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft, they're pulling from history, they're pulling from legends and folklore, and in this particular case, they're pulling from the relationship between wolves and the Irish people, specifically during the medieval era. Believe it or not, wolves were so abundant in Ireland during the medieval period that there was also a combative relationship between the Irish people and the animals. Wolves were such a big part of the Irish culture that the people used to think that they were plagued by the animals, thus inspiring them to breed the wolves with dogs to create what we now know as the Irish Wolfhound. Now, a lot of the details have been lost, but there was a connection between wolves, werewolves, and a group of wild warriors known as the Fianna, which were basically a band of landless young men that lived out in the wilderness and were trying to connect to the world through supernatural means. Of course, in Assassin's Creed context, there's so much that the team can do here, and in this screenshot we have a werewolf, clearly an enemy, but what I think is actually more interesting is the fact that it's blindfolded, and this may have to do with the relationship between the werewolf and the Druids, the children of Danu, that are also in the scene. Perhaps they've somehow managed to tame or capture the werewolf and control them and basically turn them against Eivor. Now again, there's so much the team can pull from here. There's a lot of story elements, side quests that they can do centered around werewolves. We're definitely stepping into Witcher territory, but it is just awesome to see them taking a completely different direction with the whole idea of mythology, specifically in this setting, because I think it works really well. You've got a druid cult, you've got ancient Irish magic, you've got werewolves. I think it all plays together very nicely. Now, of course, we also have to talk about those druids because as we can see, we've got 3 hooded and masked figures in the scene, all combating Eivor. And again, we knew these guys were coming. We see one with a sword on the right hand of the screen. We see one with a sort of slingshot or whip in the center of the scene. And on the far left, we see one of the children of Danu with a sickle and shield. Once again, kind of reinforcing the idea that sickles are coming to the game. We know that the sickle weapon is going to be available in Wrath of the Druids. It is very cool to see this kind of in action in every single scene that we've had for Wrath of the Druids. We see pieces of new gameplay elements that are coming into the mix here. Now, the final thing we have to talk about, of course, is Eivor diving in with Dive of the Valkyries using a brand new bone-inspired spear. It's got 2 prongs at the front. This is a really nasty looking weapon. And of course, he's also rocking some new armor. And I have to say, this is a really good step because the armor doesn't feel over the top ornate. And I know that's been a big point of contention within the community. We don't want to see gold-plated everything, shiny everything. And I feel like the armor that's being depicted in this scene is a lot more realistic. And I think a lot of players can wrap their heads around that a little bit more than some of the flashy and in-your-face armor sets that have been in the game. I also think the polearm is just spot on. I like the raggedness of it. It's not super refined. It feels wild. And I think that's going to be a really central theme to everything going on in Wrath of the Druids. The entire scene feels wild. We see bones everywhere. We see paintings on stones behind Eivor's foot there. I mean, there's just so much to latch onto. And there's that kind of sickly green glow that's kind of dominated everything we know about Wrath of the Druids. So there's a lot to sink your teeth into here. Probably the most interesting scene we'll talk about in this video. Now, that's not to say the other leaked images aren't interesting. They sure as heck are. We've got another scene with the children of Danu, and they're worshiping some sort of elk or deer inspired deity. We've seen the antlers, we've seen that throughout all of the Wrath of the Druids promotional imagery, and it's almost kind of an homage to the Wickerman that we saw burned during the base game. Now, of course, this is a big component of paganism, but there are actually other things in this scene that tie more directly to the lore and Irish culture than anything else. Now, the real talker here is this statue in the bottom right-hand corner of the scene. This is called the Giannis Figure, and there's actually a real-life version of this on the Boa Island in Northern Ireland. So this is a very specific and intentional addition in this scene, most likely because we're going to be going to this island, and that may be the centerpiece of the entire Children of Danu storyline. Who knows? Now, the statue represents fertility on one side, it's a male figure, on the other side it's a female figure, and again, there's just enough details about this in real life that the Ubisoft team can take this figure and work it into a storyline within Assassin's Creed. Now, the figure itself represents fertility, and as we see, the Children of Danu are doing some sort of ritual to this deity or possibly this godlike creature, hoping to maybe bring it into existence through the power of the Giannis figure. It's really hard to connect the dots here, but obviously that idol is represented in the scene for a reason. There's a reason why they put the Giannis figure into this shot. So connecting the dots, I think there is some sort of symbolism between fertility, the Children of Danu, and this godlike creature that they've clearly elevated up onto that pedestal. The scene is really rich with all sorts of imagery because on the far left side of the screen, we actually see a Triskel or a triple spiral, also known as a Triskelion. Now, I believe this symbol is a big part of Irish culture, but it actually originated way before Celtic and Irish culture and mythology took root in the world. And I think it really represents multiple things, but I think it is a embodiment of balance. So we've got the idea of fertility with the Giannis figure, we've got the Triskelion, which is balance, and I think they're just, again, it's all putting all of the pieces in one place to represent the Children of Danu trying to find balance within the world so that they can bring their idol to life. That's at least what I'm getting from this scene. There's just so much happening in this scene through the imagery, but what I think it all boils down to is that Wrath of the Druids is going to feature a lot of lore and a lot of cultural references. Now, the final scene is another really interesting one. We've got Eivor meeting with two other people. Clearly, they are the good guys in this case because, you know, swords aren't drawn and people aren't trying to kill each other. But this does look like a meeting between Eivor and the Irish people. Not entirely sure who they are, but we can see that they're clearly in tune with the earth. They're wearing flowy robes, they've got face paint on, they've got that crown of, you know, flowers. So they're clearly part of the Druid world, but not necessarily the far extreme Children of Danu. We also see Eivor here in more new armor, similar to the armor we saw in the first scene. It may actually be the exact same, it's hard to tell, but we do see a new shield. We see a new sickle weapon on Eivor, again confirming, even though we've already confirmed it, that sickles are coming to the game. And look at that sword. I mean, it looks really crazy. It's ornate, but still deadly, and I really like the way that's looking. We also see a brand new shield, and this is beautiful in my mind because it's tying in a lot of the Celtic and Irish designs of the time, a lot of intertwining circles and loops, and I do think that is just gorgeous across the board. We also see a new haircut here for anyone who's interested in that, but ultimately it's just another scene that's reinforcing that Irish cultural theme that's going to run throughout the entirety of the game. We see some statues on the right-hand side, not the Giannis figure. The Giannis figure is actually, there's only one of them in existence, so this is clearly an offshoot of that, but having statues, having idols around during this period wasn't out of the realm of possibility. Now, as always, guys, I like to talk about Assassin's Creed in realistic terms. I think there's enough that the developers have been able to sink their teeth into in terms of the historical lore of Ireland and the Celtic mythology that we're going to get some really interesting aspects of the game coming with Wrath of the Druids. Is that going to change the actual gameplay loop to make it more engaging, to make it less buggy? No, of course not. But hopefully, based on everything that all of the other content creators have found with trophies and in the game files, there are some changes that are coming down the pike, and I'm really excited about that. I've kind of stopped following all of the leaks and all of the minutia of every single data line because I want to be a little bit surprised when the game comes out. I do want to experience it myself, and I think these three images, although they are leaked images, are a fantastic way to just get me in the spirit and get excited about Assassin's Creed again. Is the game going to be vastly different than Valhalla? Probably not, but I'm still on the Assassin's Creed train. I still enjoy it. I love the tie-ins to cultural and mythological ideas, and I'm just excited about Wrath of the Druids. So 3 new screenshots to break down, a lot of exciting new information within them, and as always, guys, we will be playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla Wrath of the Druids when it releases on May 13th. So if you want to follow along with our adventures in Ireland, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and of course, join us on Discord. We've got a great community of over 6,000 members, but there's always room for a few more friends. Finally, guys, if you've liked our Assassin's Creed content and you want to support the channel even more, you can now do that with YouTube memberships. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you can help evolve the channel and take our community to that next level. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.